Welcome back, and this is part 2 with Tallessyn. My name is Shwa, and I'm the host and founder of a podcast called Light Up with Shwa. I hope you already are subscribed to it, and if you haven't, please do so. I hope you will continue to watch this complete show, and I hope you have already watched part 1 with Tallessyn. So, Tallessyn, welcome back.
Thank you.
So let's begin with a little bit more about parenting. So how do you spend time with your children? I didn't ask you that earlier.
Well, we spend time in a couple of different ways. We like to read together. Sometimes we read fiction, sometimes we read nonfiction. We're actually doing a book study right now about progressive Christianity, and they both wanted to be in it. So we read the book together, and then we talk about it once a week in our book study, which is with a larger group. We also like to go do fun things together. We like to go hiking. We like to go get ice cream. Our family has actually really, and this is the way I was raised, we've really claimed our faith tradition. So in our family, there's actually a fair amount of music and ritual and prayer that's not something I ever insisted upon or imposed upon them. It's just something that naturally comes to our family culture. My dad wrote a lot of songs, Christmas carols and other hymns and songs, and sometimes we just play them on the piano and sing them. It's like something people did hundreds of years ago, but our family still does it.
You play the piano also?
I play the piano, and my kids are learning to play because they want to be able to play their grandfather's songs.
Wonderful.
And they're beautiful songs.
Wonderful.
And sometimes now they're learning cello and violin, so we'll just play a little trio and we'll sing and we'll play the music, and we'll do that at church or we'll do that in our house. And we do, sometimes we'll have like a sacred campfire. It'll be the solstice, or it'll be the anniversary of my mom's passing, or some kind of moment.
So you have, you do spend time with your children.
Oh yeah, we spend time together.
And not only give them the gadgets and...
No, they're just wonderful people. I love eating dinner with them and just talking. Right. We spend a lot of time in the car because we don't live in a culture that has public transportation most places. So we have a lot of interesting conversations.
So do they give you feedback about you in different ways?
Yeah, I was going to say one of the most important things for me as a parent has been learning how to apologize. And I realized that being a parent doesn't mean making no mistakes, because that doesn't teach anybody anything. It's much more important to make mistakes, which you know you're going to do, and then to figure out how to handle that. How do you apologize?
So you don't have any ego, you just say, oh, I'm sorry I did this, and...
I mean, it wasn't easy the first few times. I think things take practice. Apologizing takes practice. And you have to swallow your pride, and you have to look them in the eye and say, you're right, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. Will you forgive me? Will you give me another chance?
So they are humble about it?
They are, and I am.
Okay.
Yeah, and they are with each other, which is wonderful to see.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So it's learning.
Yeah.
Learning how to be a better parent.
Yeah.
They learn how to be good daughters. It's very important that they see me as someone who has needs, and that they can help me meet my needs, just like I see them as people with needs that I can help meet their needs.
Do they help you around the house?
Absolutely.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do they take care of their cleaning and rooms and everything?
Yes, they clean their own spaces. They help clean the common spaces. They cook dinner once a week each.
So they don't take you for granted. They do see that mom also needs help. Or
Here's the thing. They want me to be happy. They love me. You know? So it's not like I'm like, oh, why aren't you helping? Right? We're a team. Okay. And they want to live in a clean, pleasant space. Right? And so they want to learn to cook. Yeah. It's fun to learn to cook.
So you must have instilled this sometime earlier in order for them to have this now.
I think that kids love being independent. And if you can just help that be a positive thing, you're not a nag. You're actually a coach or a guide that helps them. And I remember when we got our new washing machine, it was so fun with the lights and the buttons and the noises. And they really wanted to do their own laundry. They were pretty little. They had to carry it down the basement stairs. This was not easy, but they wanted to because it was fun. We had the new washing. And I said, I'm not doing laundry anymore. I think you all can do your own laundry. I think you're old enough. And they were totally fine with that. They were like, we want to do our own laundry. And so I think that it's having the right attitude.
Yeah. All right, last question about this section is parenting selfless, or is there any selfish motive behind being a parent?
You know, honestly, I sometimes wonder why people have kids, because they seem so unhappy about it. It seems like they just want to complain about it. And they complain about it being vacation because they don't want more time with their children. I think maybe part of it is that people have internalized this idea that they are nothing but a giver. They just give, and their needs aren't important and they don't deserve to have their needs be met. And so it stops being fun, and it just becomes a drain. And for me, because it was really important for me for that not to be true. I'm a woman and I have 2 daughters. I'm going to model for them that I do nothing but give? What kind of model is that? That's a really anti-feminist model. I want to be someone who matters, whose needs matter, and who raises women who believe they matter and their needs matter. I need to model that. And as a result, for me, parenting is relaxing and fun. It's not a drain, it's not a drag, and it doesn't exhaust me. And so that's not selfish, that's just healthy boundaries. And so
I think that's the very key word, boundaries.
Healthy
right?
boundaries. And I also think that one of the big traps people fall into with parenting is ego. Their kids, and this is me too, okay, I'm talking about myself too. Our kids are like these representations of us to the world, and if they say or do something that seems a little bit off, we feel humiliated. And so then we shame our children, like, oh, why did you say that, why did you do that? And it's been really important for me to learn, this is not about me, this is not about my ego, and shaming them isn't going to help. So trying to take our ego out of it and just be supportive parents, I think helps the relationship become a much healthier one between parents and children.
Wonderful.
Just being aware, you know, their idea of success might look like they do pottery every day and become a potter. They might not be a neuroscientist. And if I have this idea of what success looks like because of my ego and I project that onto them, they're going to feel like a failure, like they can never please me. And I'm going to feel like a failure, like I was a terrible parent because, look, my kid's a potter. Well, so what if they're a potter? Maybe they're meant to be a potter. So we need to pull our egos out of it, and our cultural egos, too.
And that thing that, they are your extensions and they have to represent you.
Or fulfill all of our dreams that were never fulfilled. We need to step back from that.
That's what it is.
That's that leap of faith I was talking about.
So were you working always when your kids were younger? Or what's the balance?
I saw one of your questions about that, about working mothers, or like both parents, whether it's the mother or the father.
Especially mothers, because
it's usually mothers.
What's your idea about it?
It's kind of a funny story. I decided to go back to school and to go to seminary for my master's right when I was getting pregnant for the first time. And so we actually timed it, 2 scientists, so that I would give birth after final exams of my first year, but that my daughter would be 3 months old, in other words, old enough to go into daycare before the semester started in the fall.
Oh, wow.
So we had 1 shot to conceive, okay? We had all the tests and everything, and it worked. And so I was pregnant all through my first year of my master's, and I gave birth the week after final exams, and the very day of my first classes in the fall, she was 3 months old, and she was able to go to daycare. And it was 2 days a week that we had her in, so it was part-time, wasn't full-time, because I was a student. And when I arrived, after 3 months of taking care of this infant, I walked into the door of my school, and I was like, oh, there I am. It was like I was 2 people. I was this mother who adored my baby, and I was also this person who really loved working with ideas and wanting to help the world become, healed. And so I realized that I was a much better mother because I was working or taking classes part-time throughout my children's childhood. But I was also a better scholar because I was doing it 3/4 time and not 40, 50, 60 hours a week, the way I'd kind of been when I was in science. And so I really do think that that's actually been shown now in this like Nordic countries. If you work 30 hours a week, maybe 35, you work better, you do better work, and you're a better parent. In my case, I didn't want to be home full time. I think I would have been losing my mind, and I think I would have been frustrated and angry, and I think I would have taken it out on my kids, even if I didn't mean to.
That helps.
Plus, you have to understand, these daycares, some of them are just wonderful places. They're all set up.
So it's not one way
toddlers.
or the other,
No,
like,
everybody's
don't leave.
different. If this is what you love, do it.
Just balance it and don't
And
totally
unfortunately,
neglect it.
among women, there's so much belief that there's one right way, and there's so much shaming of people who do things differently. If you work full time, oh, you never see your kids, you're a terrible mother. If you don't work at all, oh, well, you don't have no career, you're a terrible whatever, feminist. And I just think, wow, isn't it a shame we can't just support one another? For me personally, I feel like I got the best of both worlds.
Wonderful. Thank you for that answer. I think that will be helpful for many women to see
Find
that
your
they can
balance.
find your balance. Okay. I just want to ask you, are you familiar with any other faith traditions other than yours, your own, which is, you can say, what do you practice?
It's funny. When pressed, I say I am a Wesleyan eco-feminist.
Oh, okay.
But most people would call me a progressive Methodist.
Okay.
But I'm a Christian.
Okay.
I actually was very lucky to have had some wonderful professors in seminary who were very familiar with Eastern religions. Buddhism, Confucianism, and then with Korea, the shamanism, and Taoism. Okay. I also had I've had some learning about Islam and indigenous religions, including native traditions here. But the religion I know the least about is Hinduism. I've read a bit. There's some Hindu authors that I like, but I would like to learn a little bit more about Hinduism and some other indigenous traditions which I don't know about.
What do you like about your faith? Any one thing, you don't have to.
I think because I'm so focused on climate resilience right now, the thing about my faith tradition right now that I feel the most grateful for is that its priority is liberation and not survival. And right now we are in a moment in our culture where we are really focused on survival. And what that can turn into is gated communities and hoarding and a sense of scarcity and fear and violence. And it's not just the Christian tradition. The Judeo-Christian tradition is consistently about liberation and not survival. Sometimes things need to die in order to be set free. Sometimes what was needs to go in order for what needs to happen to come, to be born. And I really needed that message right now, just to let go. Humanity might not survive what's coming. And that doesn't mean that we lose hope and we stop and we just crawl into a cave. It means that we have a different kind of hope, and our hope is for liberation. Even if it's liberation of the earth without humanity, it's still, our vision is one of liberation. It's never just about humans or just about me or just about my family. So for me right now, that's just a really strong, powerful message I'm super grateful for.
Thank you. Ooh. Do you want your children to know about other faiths?
I firmly believe that diversity is inherently valuable. So when we have diversity of whatever kind, when we have gender diversity, when we have ethnic diversity, when we have socioeconomic diversity, and when we have religious diversity and cultural diversity, it helps us learn and understand ourselves better.
But don't you believe that, some people believe, or say that if you interact too much with other faiths or traditions that you will dilute your own faith or tradition? What do you think?
It's funny because wherever religions go in the world, they kind of draw from the local context and become a blended expression of local place and the culture of its origin. And this is just what happens. You see Christianity, to take my tradition, when you have it in, for example, Mexico, it's going to look very different from what you have in Italy or Korea. And that's beautiful and wonderful. And what are we going to say, you get to be Christian and they don't? Right? So to me there's a fear-based perspective where you kind of try to create these rigid boundaries. what I believe is that we all have a lot to learn. And there's wisdom everywhere, in all traditions and all peoples and all cultures, and we should be open to that.
And that's what I would like to quote here, not exactly, but the Quranic verse that says that we have, God says that we have made you into tribes and nations in order for you to recognize and appreciate, and not to be, you know, I'm better than you or whatever, but to appreciate and live together and coexist.
One of the traps that people fall into is the search for the one pure religion.
Yes.
They want to find one culture or one religion or one community that never did anything wrong, that never did anything oppressive, that was never sexist, that was never anything. And that's just never going to happen, right? It's a false idea. So I do like it when people take their own tradition and they find the parts of it that are empowering and liberating and beautiful, and they focus on those rather than just tossing things in the trash and just searching and searching until they can find the one thing that they feel like, if I do this, I can feel good about it because these people never enslaved anyone, or they never. For me, that's a trap.
And to answer that also in the Quran is that God says, I could have made you all one. So I believe in that if God has created everything, then God would have made us all one faith, and we all would have looked the same.
And how boring that would be.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the point. Anyways, anything else?
Humanity is broken. We do things that are bad. We do things that are sexist and racist and violent. It's just part of being human, unfortunately.
Well, maybe fortunately, right? Not unfortunately, necessarily.
If we try, we can learn from it.
Yes. All right. Let me come to you a little bit.
Okay.
What do you like about yourself?
I loved that question.
Good.
I
I hope you're not too prepared with my questions.
I'm glad I saw that one in advance, because it would have taken me a minute, but I realized when I was thinking about it, I like that I basically have a endless thirst for learning.
Well, I can second that.
I'm just fascinated by pretty much all knowledge, and I just love it, you know?
Wonderful.
Unquenchable thirst.
So you like that. And anything you would like to change about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing that I wish is that I were more climate resilient. And I know that sounds like I'm repeating myself, but I'm working on this and I'm building those skills, and I just wish that I had more and that I was more resilient. I think this is kind of bearing down on us here, and we're running out of time. And I really want to prioritize this, and it's something I've been prioritizing. I just wish that it were more. I were able to do it more.
So if you do more, then maybe we can come in somewhere and learn from you,
because
that
let's
would
do
be
it together.
important.
More than better.
we need to learn about that. How do you maintain your relationships with all the knowledge and everything you have? We have a big issue with our relationships, whether it's with children or whether any other.
You're talking about my human relationships?
Yes, human. So you have many relationships, but can we learn anything from your successful relationships that you have? A couple of things, one thing, two things, whatever you want to say. Maybe one.
Yeah, I guess I'll say two things. First of all, I think a big part of my adult life has really been trying to give myself permission to have boundaries, not being all things to all people and whatnot. And I read this interesting book called Minimalism.
Oh yeah, I heard about it.
Well, it was an interesting book. And one of the things it said, it kind of has this 80-20 rule. You know how in any group, 20% of the people do 80% of the work, right? And the way they kind of talked about it was, really, you only need 20% of the stuff you think you need. And they talked about it too with relationships. And reading about that kind of gave me permission to think, how much, I have a certain amount of life force, you know? And maybe I need to invest in the 20% of relationships that mean the most to me, and not feel so much obligation to that other 80% that are really, I love them, but I mean, really, I don't have the time if I'm going to invest in this 20% and have my village, right? And it really gave me a lot of permission as somebody who's really had that struggle with boundaries to feel like, actually, that there's something legitimate in that. I'm not rejecting all of those 80. I'm just not pouring all my life force into it. And the other thing that I'll say, someone said this about me years ago, and I never forgot it. They said, I really love how you accept people the way they are. I didn't know that about myself. But it was fascinating to have someone else reflect that back to me in high school. And
so this was in high school?
This was a long time ago.
I don't think, it doesn't look that long, but
25 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And it was...
now we know your age.
Yeah, it might have been more than 20. I don't know. I'm not so good with that, but it was a long time ago. And
nice.
I held that. I held that with me. And I said, well, if that is true, great. And if it isn't, it's something I would love for it to be true.
Okay.
And I do think that we need to do that. We need to be non-attached. We need to accept people for who they are and what they are able to give us. My dad, I loved my dad deeply. He had a lot of wounds, and I needed to accept what he was able, the love he was able to give me, and not wish that he was someone else that he couldn't be.
That's important.
Yeah, and I think that's really helps manage expectations and avoid disappointment and hurt feelings.
Offloads us too, like it makes us less stressed, maybe, in some ways.
Absolutely.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah.
That's very nice. All right. Okay, so what is wealth in your experience?
I love that question.
I'm glad she likes all my questions, not all, but some of them at least.
Well, some of them I love. Some of them, they're great, but I think wealth is really just seeing abundance wherever you are. The ability to see abundance, even in grief, the abundance of healing that grief hands us, the abundance of knowledge and growth that challenges give us. Being able to see abundance, I think that's true wealth.
Wow, nice. What is the value of gratitude in your life?
I think it's tied, Can we be grateful for pain?
Tied with pain?
I think it's tied with wealth.
Oh, wealth, okay.
It's connected. Can we be grateful for difficulty and pain? I'm not trying to say that it's not difficult, that we should want it, but what I am saying is, so, for example, there's a whole line of mind-body medicine which looks at chronic pain as basically a manifestation in our body of rage and grief. So when you think about it, you get that back pain and you feel frustrated and angry at your back. Wow, why are you hurting me again? You're letting me down. Maybe our back is carrying something for us. Maybe we should be grateful to our back for telling us something's going on with you. You need to pay attention. Maybe we need to love our back and say, let me take a look at that. What's going on? Is there some kind of rage? We don't like rage, it's scary. Is there some kind of rage or grief that you are trying to alert me to? And if I pay attention and if I open myself to that, I can release it and heal. This is a gratitude for things that we're not normally grateful for. I think
that's true.
Practices of gratitude.
We're always complaining about it then.
Yeah.
Not thankful for the pain even.
Yeah.
Okay. So whatever condition you are, you should be thankful, because you never know what lesson we are learning from, and also...
To say it that way sounds like you shouldn't be angry.
Yeah.
I think that's actually a really dangerous perspective. And trying to pressure people to feel gratitude when they're going through trauma is just not helpful.
Not helpful. That's
but
true.
what I am saying is that, once you've experienced, I'm a trauma survivor. When you've experienced trauma, your body, stores it. And then, you have PTSD, for example. Something triggers you, and all of a sudden you're on the floor and you're screaming, and we have this shame. Oh no, I have PTSD. Oh, this is terrible. What if that's our body trying to heal? What if we can thank our body for that?
Okay.
What if we can welcome that and say, that's wonderful, release the trauma.
Yes.
This kind of intentional decision to welcome healing, even when it's hard. I don't want to welcome the trauma.
Yeah, but the healing.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't need to talk about the environment, because I know that you are big on it and we talked enough on it. Maybe we should have a separate whole program on it, because it is important nowadays.
It might be the most important thing of our time.
Yes, that's true. Is this life an illusion for you?
I understand that there are areas of thought that kind of see it that way, and I do think I get the value in that perspective. It helps us to be non-attached. For me, I resonate more with the idea that this present moment is the only real thing. The future is imaginary. It hasn't happened yet. And the past is dead and gone.
Yep.
So people worry about the future and they get stuck and hold on to the past. And what sets us free from that is actually just mindfully living in the present moment. Certain things about the present moment may be illusory.
Okay.
But this is all that we really know is real is right now.
Yeah.
That's my perspective.
And whatever you're doing now is kind of creating your future.
Yeah. And it's
Right.
building on your past.
Yeah.
So it's connected.
Yeah. Good. Do you believe in afterlife?
Yeah, you know, this is such an interesting.
Yeah, I
I
wanted to
love
know
this.
from your religious point of view.
I'm a mystic. I'm
Okay.
an agnostic. For me, it's more important to have the right questions and the right answers. So I am totally okay not knowing. That's really okay with me. As a matter of fact, I think it takes great courage to live with complexity and not certitude. However, I love spiritual practices that engage with ancestors and the communion of the saints, we call it. I think there's enormous value in that. If when I die, all that happens is my body turns into earth and that earth gives life to new creatures, that's resurrection for me. I don't need it to be more complicated than that. However, maybe there is sentience and maybe we see our loved ones and we know that we're seeing them.
Yeah.
And that's okay with me too. However, my loved ones, my ancestors, they do live on in me. And it's incredibly helpful for me to have an ancestor altar in my home that I can go and sit at and talk to my ancestors and bless them and thank them. And I feel enormous support and inspiration from my ancestors. Whether they actually can hear me or not, that's okay with me. It doesn't matter. Those rituals and those practices feed me and they nourish me. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I'm fine with that. I was going to say, well, okay, we'll have some classes in future too, you know, just a humorous part of it. But yeah, every faith has their own practices. Every individual have their own beliefs. So that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah.
Have you found your purpose of life? What's the purpose of your life?
You know, so I come from this Wesleyan tradition, and there's a real focus on love and grace. And so for me, I think my vision of my life purpose is just to grow in love. Love of self, love of neighbor, love of all creation, and love of divinity.
I don't know if we have time what is Wesleyan culture, but if we have time, maybe you can explain it after I ask a couple of more questions. But is that part of Christianity?
Yeah, so Wesley he helped to start Methodism, which came out of the Anglican Church and the Church of England.
So from the Methodist line of religion. Okay, because I'm learning too, so.
Not very many people know outside of Methodism.
Okay. Any message of hope that you would like to give us today?
Yeah, can I just glance at what I...
Yes, sure. Because it's important point.
Yeah, I thought I loved this question.
I'm so happy.
Yeah. All your questions light me up.
Well, that's the last question.
This is such an important question. What is hope?
Yeah.
In Christian liberation theology, there's a strain of liberation theology, which is about, it's what it sounds like, liberation from oppression.
Okay.
And it has this term in it called the preferential option for the poor. Now, I'm not 100% sure what the people who coined that term actually meant by it. This is what I think. It's like that peace that passes understanding. Only when everything has been taken away can you really understand what abundance is. Only when you understand total despair can you understand what hope really is. Only when you understand true turmoil can you understand what peace really is. Because if you can find peace in the midst of turmoil and hope in the midst of despair, then you have a really deep sense of hope. And I believe that source of that hope is really seeing that the divine dwells inside us and all around us. And no matter where we are, the leaves of the trees and the blades of grass and the birds and within ourselves, we're never alone. We're never alone. So for me, that's a kind of, we're surrounded by kindred companions.
Thank you.
That's hopeful.
Now, quickly, can you tell me what lights you up?
You know, you're going to have guessed. It's my tradition. My tradition lights me up. My
Okay.
ancestral and my faith tradition. I
Wonderful.
just feel so grateful for it. And every
Wonderful.
year that goes by, I feel more grateful for it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Tallessyn. Thank you for watching Light Up with Shwa. I hope you will enjoy this episode just like the other episode with Tallessyn. Please subscribe, stay tuned, and thank you again.